Well, the Pirates fall short in their bid for a playoff spot. The Steelers get shocked by Tampa Bay. Pitt hoping to rebound this week against Virginia. And the Nittany Lions have the weekend off. This is Thursday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. And I'm Greg Banks. Thanks for joining us. Welcome into the first edition of October. Joining us tonight for some discussion on regional sports and all kinds of stuff. We've got Dave Shannon, the renowned radio announcer from the Altoona area. Hey, Dave.
Renowned?
Well, I had to throw that in there, make you feel good.
Wow.
You will be world-renowned at some given time. Also, historian and statistician of the Huntington Bearcats. We've got Chad States with us tonight as well. Thank you very much, Chad. What's happening?
Good evening, folks. Nothing much. Just getting ready to watch some Houston Cougar football.
Oh, that's right. O'Korn will be on this evening, right?
That's exactly right. Former Bearcat John O'Korn is playing this evening.
All right, we'll talk about John and also the Huntington Bearcats. Joining us later in the hour, by the way, Jimmy Ty, the fantasy football guy, all here on the Thursday night edition of Thursday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. Thing I guess we better talk about first off, guys, is, the Buccos last night against the San Francisco Giants. I almost cried around the sixth inning, and I did cry during, God bless America. What are your feelings on that?
Well, I'll tell you what. And Clint Hurdle a year ago got Manager of the Year.
Yes.
And he will probably not get Manager of the Year this year. And it's a shame because, quite frankly, he did a much better job this year from the standpoint that I don't think he had the talent and the leadership this year that he had a year ago. So much of that team dynamic changed during the course of the season, and Clint managed to get them to believe in themselves and do such a great job toward the end. And, to me, this year was a much better year as a manager than what it was a year ago.
Well, Dave, before we get into discussion about that, let's hear from Clint and his assessment of the season and last night's game.
I told them tonight, feel what you need to feel. We all feel disappointment. There should not be any shame. You walk out of this clubhouse head held high. You look people in the eye. We've created something here that's becoming special. First 2 years here, we pushed into the second half of the season, got pushed back. Back-to-back years, we've pushed through the season and found our way into the playoffs. What reinforces this whole playoff setup more than anything to me now is the importance of winning the division. We've been on both sides of this wild card. Take nothing away from the Giants. Want to congratulate them. They're a good ball club. They're a better ball club than we were tonight. And we finished short, and but we laid it all out for everybody every night. We emptied the bucket for our fans every night we played, all 163.
And that is certainly heartfelt from Clint Hurdle after last night's game, man. Their hopes were dashed by, matter of fact, a guy that is a great pitcher, Madison Bumgarner. He pitched a 4-hitter, 10 strikeouts. I mean, what else could you ask for, Chad? I mean, what do you think, Chad, in terms of what could have happened last night? I mean, it would have had any kind of difference in that game.
I don't know if there was anything. What the Pirates ran into was a red-hot left-handed pitcher coming right at them. And like Dave and I have been discussing all along, good pitching beats good hitting every single time. And that's exactly what the Pirates ran into. So I don't know if they could have really did anything. When it's a guy's night on the mound, it's a guy's night on the mound, and you're going to struggle against it. And I think that's just what the Pirates ran into last night. Madison Bumgarner was hitting his spots, was getting them to swing at strikes outside of the zone, and really keeping those hitters off balance all night long. And again, when you get a starting pitcher doing that, you're going to be in trouble, and that's exactly what the Pirates fell into last night.
Dave, there was some discussion about whether or not Jarrett Cole should have gone maybe last night instead of Sunday. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's kind of funny. I was sitting here over the weekend, and of course, that was a decision that wasn't made till like Saturday night that was going to happen. And I kept thinking about Chad when we had last week's show, and Chad said, I can virtually guarantee you that Garrett Cole is not starting on Sunday.
Yeah, I remember that, Chad.
Hey, sometimes you got to go out on a limb, folks.
And I don't know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I fully understood what you said. The sad part about it was, and I don't know that I make that decision any differently, because one of the things that Clint just said in the soundbite that Greg had for us there was the fact that you're looking at, do you win the division?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
what a big difference that means, because now, it's like, hey, they came up against lightning in a bottle, and you aren't going to beat Bumgarner unless you have a pitcher that starts for you that's doing exactly the same thing. And I think he made the right choice as far as, who his pitcher should have been. I mean, you look at things, and Volquez, by and large, had statistically had what you needed. The only thing I can say is you look at, we were talking before we hit the air, folks, and Chad pointed out that it was one of those nights where, although Volquez was getting strikes called, he was not really hitting his target very well. And therefore, maybe you make that move a little bit earlier, even though he's getting strikes and he's keeping San Francisco off the board. Maybe you look at it, because it is a one and done. I mean, your season's over if you lose, and if you don't like the way things are going, maybe you make that decision a little bit earlier. But by and large, I mean, how can you say anything? You have to get there first. And to me, Clint Hurdle was able to get a lesser team, or at least a lesser, when you look at it on paper, team than what he had a year ago, into the playoffs once again. And just what a run in the month of September. Virtually the buzz in all of baseball was, even yesterday before the game was played, I'm looking at a lot of the shows, MLB Network, everyone's picking the Pirates. Well, they're just so hot. They're on a roll. Mm-hmm. And that's Clint Hurdle. And, it's, man, what a job he did. And obviously they have to look at it now, and, they have to judge, is Volquez a guy that you want to keep? What about Liriano?
Right.
Is Liriano done again? Francisco's a roller coaster ride. And although he was winning there at the end of the season, we also talked about this before the show. You look at him, he's in the fifth inning. He's thrown 90 pitches, 50 of them are striking 40 balls. You aren't going to win a lot of games when that's your ball-to-strike ratio, and it's taking you that many pitches to get to the fifth inning. It's just not going to work.
Hey, Chad, you had mentioned that before the show, too. Now, both of you were discussing, and I was listening in, that if you do indeed keep Martin, okay, for next season, one of those guys have to go. Who goes? I mean, somebody's got to go. Liriano, Volquez.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a pitcher, but I think one of them is going to end up going anyway because of the high price tag that they got. But somebody like Ike Davis and Gabby Sanchez, who to me are now expendable because you've got to move Pedro Alvarez off of third base.
Right.
He's got to go and play first base. Hopefully his back comes around. There's less pressure for him over there. He's got to make the move to first base. So now you have those two guys freed up. Harrison's going to play third. Probably one of those pitchers is going to go too, because you have to keep Russell Martin at all costs. I mean, we heard the chants last night in his last at bat. Keep Russ. That doesn't happen to very many Major League Baseball players, and Pittsburgh just loves that guy. So Huntington said he's going to open up the checkbook to the guy. We're going to see how he's going to do it. But again, you're going to lose some players out of this for him to do it.
Well, this is the most exciting time of the year for sure on Thursday Night Sports Talk, because not only are we, of course, saying goodbye to the Pirates this season, but I think we're in for some exciting baseball yet to come. What are you guys looking forward to as we head towards the World Series this year? Any great? Because I tell you what, I loved the Royals on Monday night when they were playing basically small ball, and we haven't seen that in a long time.
Hey, look, Greg, the week's going fast enough. Don't hurry it along. It was Tuesday night, so
Tuesday. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Man, we're getting older faster.
Man,
anyway.
I'm telling you.
But
you're right.
I agree. I agree with you, and I have to get up early in the morning, and I'm sitting here, and it's like I have to go to bed, and it's like, no, this is too good. I stayed up till the bitter end of that game with Kansas City. They're the type of team, although we're just talking about managers and the job they do. And what was Ned Yost's move in taking Big Game James out of the game and bringing in a rookie starter as a reliever when you got three knockout guys in the bullpen? What the heck was that?
Yeah, you actually had guys sitting on the bench who, by the way, were getting ready to retire and just wanted to play one more time. You know what I'm saying? And I can't remember the player's name. Do you remember, Chad, who that was on the Royals? Anyhow, so the guy was just waiting sort of like with bated breath to get into the game and never got into the game. But they used some strategy there that I remember as a youngster watching the Pirates do back in the day, but with all the analyticals. Things have changed drastically, haven't they, Chad? We don't see that very often.
Yeah.
No, you don't, and you specifically don't see it out of an American League team that plays with a DH. So you see it even less over there, which made it even more amazing. But 7 stolen bases in one game, playing small ball, that's fun to watch. And they're generating runs the old-fashioned way. And honest to goodness, I'd take a team like that over a team that's got to rely on the long ball all day long.
Yeah.
You have a way to manufacture runs through speed. Those guys can dominate the base path. So all you got to do is get one on, and there's more opportunities to get one of those guys on base than there is somebody else hitting a home run. So, that was just so fun to watch, and, I'm pulling for Kansas City against the Angels in the divisional series.
Oh, I am too. How do you guys see that Nats Giants series working out there? I know Nationals have a dynamic team.
I think the Nats take that. I don't know. That may only be a 4-game series. That may be Nats 3-1. I don't want to downplay what San Francisco is, but they don't have a team that's all Madison Bumgarner either. And that's what won. Everybody has to remember that's what won that game. That guy was just lights out. And he's going to come back around in the rotation. And now there's no guarantee the next time he goes out, Chad will, I'm sure, agree with me, that he's going to pitch the same game, the same type of game that he did against the Pirates. This is baseball. It's the beauty of the game. I love the game so much, and it really gets a bad rap because there is an aspect of it that doesn't fit in with today's society. It's not that immediate. It's not a Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram type of game.
Right.
It takes a while, but that's what makes it great too, because you can sit at a game, and I've seen this time and time again. I've been in professional games, and sometimes folks go to the game. They are there to watch their team, but you know what? They sit there. Maybe they haven't seen each other for a couple of months or whatever.
It's a social event.
Yeah, and it's the beauty of baseball. And then the game itself. How many times do you see those big, towering, deep, long, dry balls that are there and out at the warning track? And you know what? The outfielder is right there at the base of the wall and makes the catch. What a beautiful game.
Right.
To be able to, and then there's the beauty, the visual beauty of it, the way the ballparks are, the way they're maintained. I mean, I remember going to Forbes Field as a kid, and there was hardly any grass left on the infield when you got there in August. It's just the way it was. And now it's just that beautiful emerald green every day you go. The fields are so well maintained. That's why I love baseball.
Hey, Chad.
It's not that instant gratification, but by God, it's a great game.
In essence,
I'm picking the Nats in that series.
Okay.
I don't think it goes. I think it goes 4 games. If that, the difference with what the Nationals are going to bring is they're going to roll out 3 starters right off the bat that are all number 1. Strasburg, Zimmerman, and then Pfister. And Pfister will pitch Game 3 in San Francisco against Bumgarner. So you've got a number 1 versus a number 1 there. The Nationals are so deep, and anybody who goes to my Facebook page knows that I'm a Nationals fan at heart too.
Yeah.
So, I just don't see them losing that, specifically since Lincecum from the Giants is not the starter he used to be. They don't have Matt Cain, and Angel Pagan, who was their all-everything center fielder and basically their kickstarter, is injured and out of that series too. So over a 5-game set, I just don't think they have enough to match up against that Nationals baseball team.
Well, let's look down the road real quick, guys, before we wrap this up. Let's look at the National League, and who do you think the front runners would be again? Are we looking at the Cardinals and Dodgers? I mean, in reality, at the end of this thing?
No.
They play each other, so they're going one of them's going to wipe each other out.
Okay.
So,
I think this is the... Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
As I say, to me, the Dodgers have, and again, this is my theme, the Dodgers have better pitching. You're going to see a Game 1 for the ages because the Cardinals are going to roll out Wainwright in Game 1. He's going to be matched up against, the next thing to God pitching on a mound in Clayton Kershaw. So I mean, that's going to be maybe one of the games that you have to see moving forward. But the Dodgers can throw a number 2 and a number 3 starter that are really, really good in Zach Greinke and then this Ryu guy. So I think it's advantage Dodgers, but the Cardinals are a gritty team, so I wouldn't be surprised if this one doesn't go 5 games. But I see a Dodgers-Nationals matchup in the NLCS,
right,
with Nationals winning that.
And who do you see over in the American League? And then I'll ask Dave the same question.
Right now, I'm picking Baltimore over the Tigers, although I'm very tepid with that. Again, if I look at the number 1 starters that Detroit can roll out, with Price, with Scherzer, and with Verlander, the difference is I don't have a lot of confidence in Verlander this year. He's not the same pitcher he has been. Mm-hmm. So I think that flips the script and gives Baltimore, who's an extremely hot team, a little bit of an advantage, plus they have the home ground. The other series is the Angels versus the Royals, and I've learned don't count out the team that can generate and manufacture runs. So, I'd like to pick the Royals in that just because I want to go out on a limb. So I'm going to say it's going to be Baltimore and the Royals, and the Orioles of Baltimore are going to be going to the World Series.
There you go. Dave, what do you think in the National League and then the American League?
I mean, there is nothing that I can say. I think Chad and I watch baseball pretty much the same way. So National League, he recapped it. That I can't disagree with anything. Chad's got that laid out perfectly.
Right.
I think he may be a little sentimental in picking the Royals to beat the Angels. I'm looking at an Angels-Orioles matchup in the for the championship series.
Right.
And I'm looking, and this will be a surprise, but I'm going to go for the Orioles to get through that as well. I don't see Detroit being able to defeat Baltimore.
Okay.
I do, based on some of Ned Yost's decisions, and, it is a fun thing to watch the Royals, and that small ball is great, but I don't think it can get you through that type of series against the Angels, and I think it's Angels-Orioles, and I think the Orioles surprise everybody, go on through. Wouldn't it have been great, although somewhat disappointing, but wouldn't it have been neat to have an Orioles-Pirates World Series? But it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. It's going to be O's taking on the Nats. It's going to be a little, what is that, about a half hour?
36 minutes
45.
away.
It's the Subway Series of the D.C. Beltway.
Hey, well, listen, one of the things that we'll touch on maybe in weeks to come as we watch this progress is what you guys, and I want you to kind of think about this, how to speed up this game for the future. And the reason being, of course, in this Instagram life, as Dave mentioned, and Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff, these kids, the next generation, they have ADD. And I just wanted to make mention that, think about that, because I think Major League Baseball has to seriously find a way to speed up the game. And I think they're taking some kind of action towards that in the next couple of years. And I think we should discuss that further, maybe at a later date. What do you think?
Yeah, the one thing that I hope they don't do, Greg, is go down the road. There's so much technology out. And they could literally take the umpires completely out of the game.
Oh, yeah.
If they wanted to.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm watching Jim Joyce the other day in the Pirates game.
Right.
And the guy has a strike zone, and for what the strike zone is defined as in the rule book, it's horrible. He's calling pitches that are, anywhere from 6 to 10 inches off the plate, outside or inside, depending on how you look at it. Most of them were outside calls.
Right.
But he was given that 6 to 10 inch, now that makes a game go quickly.
Yeah.
When you have an umpire that's willing to do that, Major League pitchers are good within they'll take 6 to 10 inches on the outside corners of the plate.
Right.
Anytime you want to give it to them. I don't know. That's the only way that I can think to speed up the game is to try to widen the strike zone. And then the question becomes, how much of the offense do you take out of the game when you do that?
Well, we'll talk more about that.
And people love runs.
Yep.
People love runs.
Yeah, we will talk more about that when we return, of course, as the World Series progresses. But when we do return, we'll find out how the Huntington Bearcats football overcame some great odds last week, and see what Mike Tomlin has to say about all those penalties against Tampa Bay last Sunday, and, of course, the NFL. And Jimmy Ty will join us for fantasy football. That's all coming up on the Thursday night edition of, I don't know why I say night edition, it's Thursday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net.
This is a test to find out if you know it all when it comes to children. Time starts now. Name one of the leading killers of U.S. children age 1 to 13. What's the best way to protect children in a car crash? At what age and size should a child start using a booster seat? Where can you find the answers to these questions?
Car crashes are one of the leading killers of U.S. children. Many of those deaths could be prevented by making sure that kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Don't assume you know it all when it comes to car seats for your child. Go to safercar.gov/the-right-seat and know for sure. That's safercar.gov/the-right-seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
I heard on the news about that 5-year-old who found his uncle's gun. The kid didn't know it was loaded.
I heard on the news about that 14-year-old girl who was bullied online for like a year. She couldn't take it anymore, so she got her dad's gun from his nightstand.
I heard on the news about that guy who broke into someone's house, stole a gun from the hall closet.
He accidentally shot his cousin in the head.
She killed herself.
And later, killed the owner of the store he was trying to rob.
If you own a gun, you have a full-time responsibility. When you aren't using it, be sure it can't get into the hands of curious children, troubled teenagers, a thief, or anyone else who might misuse it. Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Remember, always, lock it up. For more information on firearms storage safety, visit ncpc.org. This message brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and the Ad Council.
It's Thursday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. Greg Banks in the studio along with Dave, Shannon, and Altoona. Chad States in Huntington. And joining us is Jimmy Ty, the fantasy football guy. How you doing, Jimmy?
I'm doing great, Greg. How you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Jimmy!
Yeah, Jimmy's in the house. But, Jimmy, hang in there for a second because I want to talk with Chad because last weekend, the Huntington Bearcats hung with Penns Valley to win 49-44. You know, Chad, I was getting texts from the field over there at Penns Valley, man. It sounded like a track meet or something going on there. What happened?
Well, and if somebody would have texted me, being the statistician, I'd have had no time. My hands by the time it was done. What happened was if you were looking for defense to be played in that ball game, you're still looking because there was none on either side of the field. Penns Valley's quarterback ran for almost 400 yards and 6 touchdowns and converted every single 2-point conversion for them. And then on the flip side, Penns Valley just literally could not stop Huntington's running game as they had 2 running backs, John Wagner and Jacob Oliver, that went over 100 yards. And John Wagner, by the way, returned his second kickoff return for a touchdown, which I have no ungodly reason why Penns Valley even decided to kick the ball to him. They must not have watched any film whatsoever to see what this guy can do on a kickoff return because he's electric. He's averaging almost 30 yards a kickoff return. So how he even touched the ball is beyond me, but first time he did, 79 yards up the field. So no defense whatsoever, but a great win for the Bearcats as far as a young team being able to continue to battle through that kind of that back and forth pinball machine like of game that they had going on.
Oh yeah, and unlike last week, I don't think you're going to see that tomorrow. Although I don't know much about Ligonier Valley, but they're coming to Warbetts Field. What are you hearing about this little-known team out of the Heritage Conference?
You know, I was hoping that you'd bring more to the conversation than that, Greg. Not much. Coach Judy talked about them being, you know, a solid but not spectacular football team. I think he has confidence that his Bearcat squad has a very good shot at winning this, specifically since it is homecoming.
Right.
So it should have a nice fired-up crowd there. You know, seniors ought to be, you know, all geared up for this. But you know, as far as what Ligonier Valley brings to the table, I'm not sure. And, you know, I guess we'll find out tomorrow.
Well, you know,
that brings up, can I ask a question, Greg?
Yeah, go ahead.
On that end, Chad, how much, I know this happens in college. Everybody got together at a certain point. I know within the Northeast Conference in particular in college sports because I'm very familiar with St. Francis. But they agreed that they would all share game footage over the Internet. Does this happen in high school as well?
Absolutely. There is a website called Huddle, HUDL, that is part of MaxPreps.com that everybody posts their game film to.
Right.
So you literally, as an opposing coach, can go online and pull off that game film after they dump it.
That's
Right.
huge.
Yeah,
I
that
think
is.
that's huge.
Huge. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you remember back in the old days, there was a tape exchange. And,
Yeah, there was.
you know, especially during playoffs. I remember Jim Zalzig coming to Johnstown for a game, and he was scouting, I believe it was like Penn Highlands had somebody down in Lewistown had a different school, and he was watching Johnstown and this other team, and he asked me to point out the coach for Johnstown. So perhaps they were playing the Trojans, but he wanted to get a tape. And you can only imagine, Dave, we go back to the days of film, remember?
Oh, heck yeah. Game film.
Oh, man, it took you forever to process film, so you might only get it like the night before the game if you're lucky. Well, I think this huddle idea is a great idea. Now, I have done some research. I did find out today, Chad, when I went into Ligonier Valley's website, they actually have games from 2012 back there. Okay, but they don't have any information on this year yet, except for the fact they beat Purchase Valley back on, or Purchase Line, I guess it was, back on September 5th. So that's all I know about these guys, because they were actually a merger of Ligonier and, of course, Laurel Valley, which is down around Seward, Pennsylvania. They put those teams together years ago, and I couldn't tell you, other than the head coach at Laurel Valley was a guy, and I can't even recall his name now.
Jerry Page.
Jerry Page. He had been there forever. I think 40 years he had been there. Right, Jimmy?
Yeah. Ligonier Valley used to be in the Laurel Highlands Conference.
Right.
Before they went over to the Heritage Conference. Anything I do know about Ligonier Valley is they had a kid last year who played in the Big 33 game as a tight end who signed with UConn.
Oh, okay. And a matter of fact, I think that kid started recently because they mentioned him on one of the games that UConn played. So,
yeah.
Having said that, hey, anyhow, Chad, best of luck to the Bearcats tomorrow night. And I think tomorrow night is senior night because I'm going to be at homecoming night, which I think is on the 10th of October when we face Bald Eagle area. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
yep,
we'll be there for
next
that.
Week.
Yeah, the class of 72. We're going to show up
Did you
in
get
force.
nominated to be the king of homecoming again?
No, listen, I got volunteered to do a party for the class of 72 because we all turned 60 this year. So
Yikes.
a couple of the chicks said, hey, well, why don't we all get together and party and dance? And I'm like, well, we'll get together, but I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of partying. Or a whole
Are you sure
lot of
you're
dancing.
60, Greg?
Well, I don't feel 60, but I bet you any money when I see some of these people, they probably look 60. Yeah,
I thought you were only 21, Greg.
I wish I were 21 again. Hey, listen, we won't even take a break. Let's talk real quick about, of course, fantasy football, Jimmy. What's going on in the fantasy football world these days in, of course, professional sports?
Well, last week I got it wrong with Kirk Cousins. He stunk up the joint against the Giants.
Yeah, you did.
My apologies for that, but a hot name right now out there in the quarterback rank because they're playing the Steelers and the Steelers secondary isn't really that good is the rookie quarterback from Central Florida, Blake Bortles.
Oh, yeah. Jacksonville's bringing him up, yeah.
Jacksonville is starting him this week against the Steelers, and in fact, he even said online, why do the Steelers even have half these players in the secondary? I don't understand why they're even playing professional football.
Oh, bulletin board. Yeah. Bulletin board information, huh? Material.
So, bulletin board, yeah. Another player I would look at this week is the running back, since Mark Ingram is out with injury with New Orleans. Look for Corey Robinson of the Saints. He's getting mega looks at in fantasy football world. And in a surprise pick, Peyton Manning has a new favorite target in Denver, which is former Steeler Emmanuel Sanders. Mm-hmm. So he could be, if he's being picked up quickly now since everybody knows Peyton looks at him.
Yeah.
So if you don't have him, I would pick up Emmanuel Sanders. If he's out there.
Well, isn't Sanders the guy that ran his mouth at the beginning of this season about how he gets all the passes from Manning and Ben wasn't throwing to him or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I hope we play that dude.
He's the one who said basically Roethlisberger didn't care about him, and Manning does.
All right.
Because if you look at anybody on the Denver offense, from Demaryius Thomas to Wes Welker, you know Manning's going to give him the ball, but right now, Emmanuel Sanders is the guy to pick up if you want one of them Denver receivers.
Right. Let me ask you this: this guy's stock has probably dropped a little bit. LaShawn
LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah. Now, listen, he had 17 yards a couple games ago, 20 yards last week. I mean, what's going on with that? Maybe one of you guys can tell me what's going on with McCoy.
Well, with LaShawn McCoy, he did play a tough defense last week in San Francisco. He should have an easier game this week, but against the St. Louis Rams. But McCoy's on my fantasy team, and I'm like, why am I starting this guy? He's supposed to be like the NFL MVP type, and
right.
he's not producing. Everybody's catching up to the Chip Kelly offense. They're stacking the line up there to stop the run.
Right.
So LaShawn McCoy, he'll get your fantasy points. He'll get your yards, but right now he's struggling.
Yeah, he's having some rough patch.
The reason why I think he is, Jimmy, is because as bad as the Pittsburgh Steelers secondary is, the Philadelphia Eagle offensive line could probably be its equal. That is not an offensive line that is very good at all. There's a lot of backups on that line, so I'm going to give McCoy a pass because Penn State might as well have as good a line as what the Eagles do right now.
Right. We'll get into that in a minute.
The Eagles, they started out with an all-pro offensive line. Mm-hmm. You have your center down. I think only 2 players from the start of the season are playing. Everybody else, like you said before, are all backups.
Right.
That's why McCoy's struggling. That's why Darren Sproul's struggling. That's why Nick Foles has to throw the ball 50 times a game.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you cannot run the ball right now with that Eagles offensive line.
Hey, well, meanwhile, the Steelers were playing flag football on Sunday against Tampa Bay. They dropped Sunday's game 27-24. Mike Tomlin said the 15 penalty flags against the Steelers will be corrected, he tells us, will be corrected immediately.
We were highly penalized in the game. I understand that penalties are part of football, but the ones that really get me going are the pre-snap penalties because that's concentration, that's detail, that's cohesion, that's game readiness, and we had too many of those really in all 3 phases. We had some on offense with false starts. We had some on defense, and we had one particularly on defense at a critical down and distance on 3rd and 2 late in the football game. We had an opportunity to get off. We gave him a new set of downs without him earning it, and that's tough to deal with. And obviously, we had some penalties on special teams. We covered the center on a punt. Some detail-like things there. Things to grow on, no doubt. We can't have egregious repeat offenders in that area. If we do, they're going to be dealt with. But I can't necessarily say in that performance that they were repeat or egregious offenders. Largely, it was popcorn in that it was occurring with different people in different areas throughout the course of the game. We got to get on the screws. It goes beyond just identifying it. We got to take action. It's our plan to have officials here at our practices this week to aid us in that, but also just the continued play, development of our play from a technical standpoint will help us in some of the in-play penalties.
Coach Mike Tomlin, courtesy of Steeler.com. Okay, Dave, we got a bunch of popcorn and screws that happened last Sunday. What happened?
more screws than popcorn. One of the things that happens, and I think the Steelers made improvements in the defense over last year. But when you're a little bit slower, you're looking for any kind of an edge that you can get on the opposition. And that's going to lead you down that penalty road.
Yeah.
Because what you're now into, instead of a game, not you should be in a reaction game, but that has to be part of what makes your defense good is how they react to certain situations. Mm-hmm. They're in an anticipation, and they're trying to read what the offense is going to do constantly. And I think that sets you up for the potential of getting a lot of penalties in the game because you're trying to get the edge on the other team. And I'll tell you what, as fast as that game is, it's amazing, folks. If you get a chance to go to an NFL game, if you've never been at one, don't accept just what you see on TV as the game because there's chances are you've watched even college to pro. The speed of the game, my goodness, and some of the sizes of those gentlemen and how fast they are, what they do and how quick it is. I'll tell you what, you can't, you can't get an edge.
Yeah.
By trying to sneak up to the line, maybe across the line. No matter what you do, it's tough to get an edge in the NFL.
Chad, you watched that game on Sunday, the same game we watched. What was your assessment of it? Some of those penalties were just foolish penalties as far as I was concerned.
Well, they are, and Dave's hitting all the right points here. When a defense isn't that good, they're going to look for an advantage to be able to, try to, I don't want to say cheat the system, but try to get themselves better. And, some of this, that's where penalties come into, is it's out of desperation. They're just not that good. And we talked about this before the season even started. And the Steeler defense came into question, specifically the secondary, and it was exposed by a very pedestrian quarterback.
Right.
And Mike Glennon is not, Peyton Manning by any stretch of the imagination, and the Steeler defense really couldn't do anything with that guy. And that's scary moving forward, because this is a team that has a lot of big games coming up. They got to play Cincinnati twice before this is all said and done.
Yeah, we got Cleveland again,
Atlanta
too.
And Matt Ryan. They got to play Drew Brees.
Yeah.
What are those quarterbacks going to do to Pittsburgh's secondary?
Oh, my God, pick them apart.
And especially with, I know Ike Taylor isn't everybody's favorite, but he does a lot better than the guys they have out there right now.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. Obviously. So, they're lacking in depth right now. Obviously, they were lacking in speed. And, bottom line is, I think the offense, what do you feel about the offense, Dave? Do you think they were clicking? Actually, even in that, I believe Ben took like 3 sacks or 4 sacks on Sunday. They were getting into the backfield there quite a bit, too, Tampa Bay.
Yeah. And this gets back to it, they weren't Carolina. They just flat out weren't Carolina. And it made such a big difference in the game. To Ben's credit, he never really panicked. As often as they were around him, he stayed Ben. He was still Ben, and he's the type of guy that can make something out of nothing. Unfortunately, they were in on him so quickly that he didn't have a lot of chances to make something out of nothing. You maybe had 2 looks. You could look off 2 receivers. And by comparison against Carolina, that was, he had, 3-4 looks.
Right.
And you give him 3-4 looks, he's going to find somebody on the field to throw a pass to. So, like I say, that was not Carolina. And that's going to be the key to the Steelers' season as far as the offense goes, and has been, and it's just amazing. I think it's going to work its way out, but I think that it's like Chad and I had said at when we started the show this year, and that is they're going to be an 8-8 team. It is just the way it's going to shift out again.
Hey, Chad, at halftime, the Bucs were tied at 17-17 in the third. Coming out of the third, 80-yard drive is what they put together. And I also noted, because I made some notes of the game, the no-huddle seemed to be working well. Miller is now the 4th all-time Steelers receiver, passing Swan. They had 115 penalty yards, and by the 4th against the Steelers, there was a delay of game. But one of the things I noted was there was a ball thrown to Antonio Brown on his fingertips in the 4th, and he dropped the ball. Obviously, these guys get paid a lot of money. If it hits your hands, do you agree you should catch the ball?
Yeah, well, in that case, he short-armed it. He just didn't extend his arms to catch it. But, things like that are going to happen during the game. Did that lose the game for the Steelers?
Right.
Would it help them win it? That's for sure. But I can't point to that play and say, they lost because he dropped that ball.
No.
They lost because there was a myriad of other things that went wrong.
Yeah.
Penalties, defense not playing well, a running game that really didn't get started like it did the week before.
Mm-hmm.
So, that first quarter, Ben was on the ground. They really couldn't do anything. As Tampa Bay should have been out to a 21-0 lead. They kind of shot themselves from scoring a couple times. So, Brown should have made that catch. There's no doubt about it. But they didn't lose the game because of it. They lost the game because of everything else that they did bad.
Well, last week we all agreed that Steelers are going to beat Tampa Bay. And so let's go round robin real quick. Give me a score on the Jacksonville Steelers game. We'll start with Jimmy.
Jacksonville Steelers game, let's say Jacksonville 21, Pittsburgh 17.
Ooh, jeez, Jimmy. Okay, Dave.
I don't think Pittsburgh
Man,
play up to their potential.
You think they're that far as far as down sliding? I mean, come on, man. Jacksonville. Of course, we said that about Tampa Bay, too.
I said about Tampa Bay, so I'm just going to change my pick this week. So.
All right, go ahead, Dave.
I'm going to flip Jimmy's pick, score-wise, and go with the Steelers. I'm going to say that they still have, especially in Dick LeBeau, I think you have so many of those guys respect him. Yeah. And I look for the defense, even though they're trying to, do anything they can do to cheat a little bit and get a little bit of an edge in a game. Yeah. I think Dick LeBeau has them back under control. You see a better game out of them. See a better game out of the defense. It gives the offense a chance to win. So 21-17 Steelers.
What are you thinking, Chad, as they head down to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars on Sunday?
I'm going to take it 27-17 Pittsburgh. I think Jacksonville is really one of the more putrid teams in the National Football League.
Okay.
This side of Oakland. I mean, and Oakland's the worst one I've seen in maybe a few decades.
Yeah.
But Jacksonville really is not that good. It's a growing football team, you know, and one of the things I'm rooting for, I want to see Blake Bortles connect with a touchdown pass with Allen Robinson.
Yeah.
So, just to get that Penn State connection going. But I just think Pittsburgh, even as faulty as what they are, is still way better than what Jacksonville can throw out there.
Right. Thursday Night Sports Talk on the AirNetwork.net. Dave Shannon along with Chad States, Jimmy Ty, and Greg Banks. Keeping it in the NFL, you had mentioned how putrid the Oakland Raiders are. And now that Davis is dead, and I don't know if his kids have taken over, but you can't really get any kind of seniority taking on that coaching job. And John Gruden's name keep coming up, but I'm thinking to myself, oh, no, he's not leaving television for that gig. What do you guys think?
John Gruden's not going to come back.
I would take that job if somebody offered me to leave ACCO to go out there. And that's a statement. Because it's a disaster from upper management all the way through. And when your front office is that bad, it's just going to reflect all the way through your team. And there's no correcting it. Yeah. I mean, unless there's an ownership change, there is no correcting that out there at all.
So you're thinking blow that situation up and, of course, start over again, huh?
And that's what they need to do.
Yeah, what are you thinking, Dave, as far as Oakland?
I feel bad for the fans.
I do, too. I feel real bad.
Yeah, it's, for all the, everybody really hated Al Davis and all the things they said about him. But now in the last couple of years, maybe you can argue what he did and whether it was negative as far as affecting the franchise. But, in the years that he was really active, and he was a football guy.
Right.
That's where, it's leadership starts with ownership when you come right down to it in these franchises nowadays.
Exactly.
Because you can pick up the best management team, general manager, and player development and front office staff. But if you don't have an owner of a team that's committed to, really winning at all costs, then it's tough for them. I'm surprised sometimes that some of the GMs get into the situations that they do.
Right.
Because you're almost, doomed to fail because you don't have the owners behind you. You don't have them willing to spend the money. You either go into the situation and know that, what your expectations are as far as what they're going to spend and how they're going to back the team financially and what kind of players they want to get. And it's going to be a low-budget operation, and you accept that. Or you go in and you have expectations, hey, the guy's got money. He told me he's going to be willing to do whatever it takes.
Right.
And you can go from there. So it really starts with ownership.
Wow.
I think that's such a huge key to every team. It's like, hey, look at Mark Cuban buying the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh, yeah.
What were the Mavs before Cuban bought them?
Yeah.
They were an afterthought in the NBA.
Exactly.
Now they're not.
Right.
Because he's committed.
Same thing with the LA Clippers. Everybody laughed at the LA Clippers for years.
Oh, yeah.
For years, they were the laughing stock of the National Basketball Association. Now, the Clippers are the talk of the NBA because of what happened with Dollar Sterling, because of Steve Ballmer buying them out.
Right.
And now the Lakers are second fiddle in Los Angeles in basketball. Everybody's Clipper mania now out there.
Yeah, so obviously when you think about the Staples Center, you always think about the L.A. Lakers. Now people are thinking about the Clippers. So with that change there, I'm sure some good things will be happening. But let me wrap up the NFL segment with this. Russell Wilson today, admitting that he was a bully in school by knocking out other kids' teeth, rubbing their hair in dirt, and lots more until he found his faith. Now, this all came to fruition today as he wrote an essay. I don't know if you've heard it. Derek Jeter has a blog called The Players Tribune, and he's getting all these players to come clean in some things that they've done and talk a little bit about it on the heels of domestic abuse and such. Do you think other players will come out with their confessions? Obviously, Derek Jeter has some credibility, and you guys have to come clean, too. What's the worst you ever did to a kid on the schoolyard? Huh?
Oh, man, I am glad we are on the Internet, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't knock any teeth out or anything, did you? I mean,
Yeah,
come on.
well, it wasn't on the schoolyard either.
Yeah.
I'll let these guys answer that before I do.
Hey, Dave, I can only confess to one thing. There was this girl, and she was bugging the hell out of me in grade school, and she just wouldn't leave me alone. And remember, we played tetherball at recess. And I told her, I said, okay, you want to play tetherball? Huh? So, and she went over on her side of the tetherball pole, and I socked that ball and knocked out. I think I gave her a black eye, and she left me alone after that, man. You know. But, I mean, that's my confession. Yeah, I got rid of her real quick. Now she's a millionaire. I wish I'd have kept her around. See how that damn karma works? Now, I'm going to see her at the reunion, Chad, probably like next Friday when they take on Bald Eagle. And she's not, hopefully, going to remember that. And I'm going to become her best bud. I'll do anything she wants me to do.
If you're partying and the beverages are swilling.
Yeah, baby. I'm about to get her liquored up. So she will lose not only her mind, but, hey, who knows what else. Anyhow, guys, let's continue on. It's Sports Talk on Thursday night. Penn State has a bye week. They lost to Northwestern. And, of course, Pitt lost to Akron. We'll talk about all that stuff coming up next here on Thursday Night Sports Talk.
All right. Can everybody take their seats and settle down, please? Hey, come on, guys. We got a lot of work to get through today, okay? Now, let's start with some word problems. Okay, let's see. This question is for Jacob. Jacob, let's say you work 25 hours a week after school at the deli, earning $8 an hour. Sally works 30 hours a week at the movie theater, earning Y dollars an hour. And Sean works 40 hours a week at the auto shop, earning X dollars an hour. Then how are you going to drive your mother to her dialysis treatments every day and still find time to finish your science project this week?
Some students are tackling more than just their schoolwork, which is why more than 30% of them aren't graduating. But you can give them the boost they need to make it through by visiting boostup.org.
All right, listen up, class. This next question is for Susan. If you pick 27 apples and you give away 30%, how many apples will you...
Visit boostup.org today. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
I've had trouble with Angel trying to finish high school. He's always struggled through even elementary. It would be frustrating because sometimes I would talk to him and he wouldn't even turn around and look at me. I would ask him, so you're going to school today, right? He would say, yeah. And then later during the day, I would get a phone call saying he wasn't in class. He dropped off for a whole month. There's a time that I just gave up. I just decided, you know what, I don't know what to do with you. I mean, I pretty much have done everything to try to get you back to school. You know, you feel that maybe you're not a good parent or maybe you don't know how to fix the problem. I really didn't have many people to look to but myself. Now I think that it's gotten a lot better. Now I at least have hope that he'll finish high school. I can't give up. He's still my son, you know, I can't give up.
Give your teen the boost they need to graduate. Call 1-877-4A-KID or join us at boostup.org for tips and advice. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
You know, what we ought to do is record the conversations we have while we're taking these breaks.
That's No.
Thursday Night Sports Talk on the Air Network.net. Greg Banks in the studio, Dave Shannon in Altoona. We've got Chad States in Huntington and Jimmy Ty, fantasy football guy in Johnstown. Well, as we roll through, of course, another weekend of great sports coming up with Major League Baseball underway. In addition to that, college football getting underway tonight. UCF on the air against Houston. And John O'Korn, by the way, from Huntington. Should be a pretty exciting weekend. But if you're a Penn State fan, don't worry about it because they'll be back. They had a little rough patch, wouldn't you say, guys? Saturday against Northwestern, Chad. I mean, what was going on with that? Holy mackerel.
Well, again, the offensive line that we have been talking about for the past couple of weeks really showed up in the fashion of being a gaping hole for Northwestern defenders to run right through. Because, it was all day long for Northwestern to look like they were, the Pittsburgh Steelers of the 1970s with that defense. Hackenberg didn't stand a chance. The ground game that people kind of had that misconception of is back because of what they did to UMass wasn't there. They didn't stand a chance from the get-go. Hey, hats off to the NCAA. That's the game that they wanted to get out of Penn State after they put those sanctions in.
All right, and here's James Franklin speaking a little bit about offensive lines and exactly what the problem might be.
We got one scholarship offensive tackle in the senior, junior, and sophomore class. That's it. So you look up on the scholarship board, senior, junior, sophomore is one scholarship player, and then the rest are freshmen. So, depth. We've been able to stay healthy for the most part. We just got to continue getting better and growing. But there's no doubt about it. That's kind of where we're at.
So while the Lions, by the way, have a bye this weekend and get set to play next week against Michigan, I just heard on the air this evening before coming on, James Franklin arrived at a high school game in Maryland this evening via a helicopter. So he's certainly on the recruiting trail. And, those additional scholarships are definitely going to have to help out. I just believe that obviously the guy's, and he's not making excuses, Dave, but the guy's trying to tell you clearly that he doesn't have any horses up front, to help these guys out.
Yeah. And, hats off to him for doing what he's able to do. Here is one thing, and there was a lot made of this week, because it's a bye week. They were talking about the learning process he went through at Vanderbilt and what he ended up, his formula for success, by the way, 4 bye weeks at Vanderbilt for him, and the team was 3-1 coming off those bye weeks.
Yeah.
And the formula he came up with is you just let the guys completely alone.
Give them time off.
Today, tomorrow, and Saturday are all off days. He, as a matter of fact, he encouraged his players, if you have the chance, if your classes permit, go home. Go home, see your family, be with your family, get back into things at home. And we'll see if that pays off here for Penn State, because sometimes, as an athlete and you're in a repetitive business, you're doing the same thing the same way time after time. And then when it doesn't work, you start to second guess yourself. And sometimes you just need to detach yourself, get away from it. So when you come back, you're back to just doing what you know how to do, and your mind isn't second guessing you. So I think he's got a good plan there during this bye week stretch. And man, you talk about a guy that understands. He understands kids.
Yeah.
I remember it was a headline that they had, Coach Paterno at the end getting active on Facebook and Twitter. It was a big deal, when the coach got into that. And Franklin's already into that to begin with. So
he
understands the media. He understands kids these days. And but you're right. It points out that he realizes that there are any number of weaknesses there. And he needs to address those to get into a real meaningful bowl game next year, since those sanctions have been lifted.
Well, Chad and Jimmy, they're taking on Michigan next week after this bye week. And Michigan is having problems of their own with their coach, Brady Hoke, and also some kind of protest at the president's house or the athletic director's house over the week, where if you saw the video of the quarterback basically getting knocked out and they put him back in again. How do you feel about that, Chad? And do you think Brady Hoke's job is on the line?
I think the AD's job is on the line. I think Brady Hoke's job is on the line. How do you miss that in today's world?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's so much hypersensitivity about, football injuries, head injuries, and all that other stuff. How do you miss that out of your quarterback when everybody's looking out?
He said he didn't have headphones.
My mind.
Yeah, he said he had no communication.
That's the other thing. How does a head coach not wear headphones on the sideline these days either? With that said, I'm not counting Michigan as a victory for Penn State because of what James Franklin said. And just think about that. one scholarship offensive lineman he's got in the senior, junior, and sophomore class.
Right.
Don't underestimate that. I mean, that is huge compared to every other team that they're going to face that's had the full allotment of 84, 85 scholarships, and all those kids are heavily recruited kids that are on those teams. So despite the fact that Michigan's a bad football team going into this game, you know, Penn State's depth and what the NCAA has caused really puts them to serve notice in any game they play.
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy, kind of coattailing on what Chad said there. If indeed Brady Hoke's job is up, we're hearing that the Harbaugh brothers are interested in that job. Now, how do you go from the NFL, seriously, back to college football? And I think the Harbaugh from the 49ers is having a tough time with the administration there, and there is some thought that he may just slip that gig and go back to Michigan. Do you think that'll happen, Jimmy?
I don't think it would happen. It would only happen because he's a Michigan alum. Right. He has it really, really good in San Francisco. Jim Harbaugh has it good in San Francisco. I would not take that job if I was Jim Harbaugh. if they gave it to me for free.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, he would only take it because he's an alumnus and he can get more scholarships and better players that way.
Yeah.
Look, I'm Jim Harbaugh. I was the quarterback for Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So on.
Well, basically, he's just bringing credibility to the job.
Yeah,
because,
basically, that's all it is.
It's not like coaches have not. Yeah, it's not like coaches have not left the NFL. Saban, we could go on.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Here's the thing: Saban left the NFL because he couldn't succeed.
Right.
And you know, even though it's a rough patch here for Harbaugh at San Francisco, it's not that bad. I mean, the guy's played in the Super Bowl. You're entitled to an off year. I mean, Chuck Noll, as great as he was as a head coach of the Steelers, he had his off years. It happens.
Yeah, did you hear any talk after the game on Sunday about Tomlin? I mean, people wanting his head and his job. I mean, did you guys hear the same talk I heard?
Yeah.
Sure.
I've been hearing that talk.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, and it's, to me, are you going to go out and find a better coach right now than Mike Tomlin is? And that's the thing you got to ask yourself.
Yeah.
If you think that there's somebody else out there that's better, fine.
Yeah.
But you're really rolling the dice with that.
Yeah, who's the next
you really
guy in
gotta
line?
Be careful in what you do.
Yeah. Hey, well, wrapping it up, meanwhile, Pitt dropped their second game Saturday against Akron 21-10. As the Panthers' James Conner was held to under 100 yards for the first time this season. Chad Wojtek was 20 of 34 for 220 yards, 1 touchdown, blah, 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 blah. But listen, this is what Paul Chris said about now they've got to make an improvement as they get set to take on Virginia this Saturday.
Well, certainly, the last couple of weeks haven't gone as we would have liked, but I think we all got to take, and we all have take ownership in it, and we're going to all take ownership in correcting it. Now we got a heck of a challenge this week. I think, as you guys know, Virginia's a good football team, 3-2, big win against Louisville in conference, and 2 close games, good games with BYU and UCLA, obviously good teams. And so, looking forward to having a great week of preparation, and it was good seeing the guys
Dave,
back in. And
this is like sitting through a Belichick interview. Seriously, this is like sitting through Patriots like a press conference after a game when these guys get beat. And so, I mean, the guy's a great coach, but, I mean, he can put you to sleep. We've been giving Pitt, I think, more credit than they deserve. And obviously, teams are starting to key on this Conner these days. Would you agree, Jimmy, first of all, that maybe that's how he's getting stuffed and stopped? What's going on?
Yeah, like you said before, he had over 100 yards. I mean, under 100 yards. A lot of teams are saying, okay, James Conner's their whole team. If we can stop James Conner, we don't think Wojtek can really handle the pressure because he only throws to Tyler Boyd, as you all know that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, teams are just going to just pressure Conner. He's not going to get the yards that he was earlier in this season because nobody knew who James Conner was.
Right.
Or early in this season. Now they know, okay, this kid's legit. He's the leading rusher in the NCAA.
Right.
So, if you stop James Conner, you can stop Pitt.
Hey, Chad, now we're getting to the point where somebody mentioned last week, you think Penn State, you think football, and also wrestling. You think Pitt, you think basketball. Yeah, this ACC is beginning to become somewhat of a joke, and I don't know. Are we giving Pitt more credit, or what's going on there?
After last week and the loss to Akron, and that's a bad loss.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a loss that if you're trying to grow your program, specifically in the face of what Penn State's doing, that's a bad loss.
Yeah.
Your recruits are going up against James Franklin, or your recruiting base is going up against him,
Exactly.
and dominate the state type deal. So if you're losing to Akron, that's a whole lot different than losing to Northwestern the way Penn State did. So that's a bad loss.
Right.
As far as the ACC goes, it still is a basketball conference. I'm sorry, folks. It's not a great football conference at all.
Right.
Let's not kid ourselves. So, Pitt's got a lot to work on. And I think this week, I don't see them beating Virginia. If they can't beat Akron, I don't know how they're going to beat Virginia.
Yeah, what's your feeling on that matchup this week, Dave? Pitt and Virginia.
I think the Panthers can rebound a bit against Virginia, and it's nice to give them platitudes.
Yeah.
I think it's an even game, but I think this gives Pitt a chance to get a meaningful win, as opposed to and I think we were all of the opinion that Iowa was going to be a win.
Yeah.
And I think that game really threw them. Maybe that's why they were in such a bit of disarray when they took on Akron, is they expected to win the Iowa game, and they just didn't.
Oh, that was certainly pivotal. Now they have 2 losses, Jimmy, as they go into this Virginia matchup. How do you see this thing turning out on Saturday?
I think Pitt's going to rebound off that Akron loss. It's an embarrassment for the University of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And they got to keep up in that ACC conference. Right now they're tied for first in the ACC Coastal Division. Since they only played one game in the ACC, and they won it against Boston College.
Right.
So they have to keep up so they can at least go to the ACC championship game, which they're going to. If that happens,
yeah,
they're going to lose to Florida State.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
That's a guarantee. As a Pitt fan, a Pitt alum, if that happens, they're going to lose to Florida State. I'm just so happy that they're not playing them this year in regular season.
Right. Thursday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. Dave Shannon, Chad States, Jimmy Ty, and Greg Banks. Hey, Dave, you've been watching any of the Penguins in their preseason as they wrapped it up last night? What do you think about Sid? Is he back?
Oh, yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed so far is the Penguins love the stretch pass to get out of their zone and up the ice. They're not doing that. That's Johnson's big difference between he and Bilesma in getting out of the zone. Don't stretch that pass. And I'll tell you what, that has killed the Penguins in any number of the playoff series that they've been in recently. So, looking for good things. It's not going to be as exciting as it was, because those breakout goals are just wonderful to watch. But, they still have the talent there to do what they need to do.
Well, we're looking forward to talking about the Penguins more on Thursday Night Sports Talk. I want to thank Dave Shannon, Chad States, Jimmy Ty for joining us on this Thursday night edition, guys. Hopefully you have a great weekend, okay?
You too.
We'll meet you back here next Thursday night at 7 o'clock right here on the airnetwork.net. Thanks for listening.